Hey everyone, this is Cassie Green, Content Director of Apparelist and Editor at Printing United Alliance.
And this is Kristine Shreve, founder of the Women in Garment Decoration Facebook group.
And you're listening to Threads of Change, a new kind of discussion for the printing industry.
It's time to talk about how we can inspire change. Our conversations will feature topics such as how we can build a more diverse environment at trade shows, what resources are needed to support underrepresented communities, and more.
We might be tackling some tough topics, but we're hoping you'll join us on this journey to be the change we want to see in the industry.
Come along with us. The next episode starts right now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Threads of Change. And we're doing the second in our series of Cassie and I talking about things that are important to us. And last month, November, I guess, we talked about ageism and gendered ageism and all that stuff, which is something that's kind of a subject that I have encountered and am concerned about. And this month, we're going to talk about something that Cassie deals with, which is chronic illness, which is something that I also understand. So we want to talk about what it's like to deal with that and it means for your life and how it impacts you, and maybe a little bit about how employers or family or friends or whatever can accommodate you or help you. So, Cassie, let's start with, I'm going to interview you, so just deal with it.
Should be weird.
Yeah, it's a little weird, but I've interviewed you before, so we're good. But I want to start with, let's tell people a little bit about your situation because they need to understand what you're dealing with. So let's start with that.
Yeah, so in 2017, after my youngest son was born, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is a fairly common issue that most women deal with. It's an autoimmune disease that it causes your body to attack your thyroid, right? And so you start having issues with hormones. You can have issues with weight gain. You can have issues with weight loss, depending on where you're at. Ultimately, some women do have to have their thyroids taken out because they're so damaged. But thankfully, that's not me. I have a very mild case. My biggest issue with Hashimoto's is it actually causes me to have a tremor, which is more funny than anything, in my opinion, because it really freaks people out. So like if I'm particularly stressed or I haven't done a good job taking care of myself, and I'm holding an item like my phone to take a selfie or a pencil to write something down, I will shake uncontrollably. And the more I try to control it, the worse my tremor gets. And so it can be really awkward trying to take selfies, but it's fine. That particular autoimmune disease is fairly easy to manage, which has been great. But again, a lot of women and even some men will deal with it. It's pretty common in the US, in particular. And then the timeline gets so funky because COVID messes me up so bad. I'm sure you're the same, where you look back and you repress that time. And so now you are totally confused about what year it is. I think it was maybe 2023. No, it wasn't. It was sooner. It was 2020-ish. I was having these really weird things happening to me. I was spiking these 102, 103 degree temperatures just out of nowhere. But I wouldn't have any other symptoms. And then it progressed to, I was spiking temperatures and I was getting these really bad rashes on my arms and kind of in my abdomen area. And then it progressed to, I'm getting these really high fevers, I'm getting rashes, and I'm having these horrible body pains. So I'm like, what is going on? Am I getting COVID every few weeks, which is unusual to get COVID every couple weeks. And then it progressed to some really serious things. The body pain would get so bad that I would be bedridden, was physically incapacitated. I couldn't move because it was so painful to even move. I couldn't, my kids couldn't come in contact with me because they would touch my skin and my whole body would just like light up with pain. It was the craziest, scariest thing ever. And then, then the nausea started kicking in and I couldn't keep anything down. And it was just like, what is going on here? And, my primary care doctor couldn't figure out what was going wrong. We were testing for all the things, right? All the things. We were just throwing a book at it, right? And then one day I woke up and my entire body was covered in a rash. My face had a rash on it. My lips had a rash on it. I mean, my stomach was covered in a rash. My hands were covered in a rash. I was like, this is not normal. And so finally I got referred to a rheumatologist because I had a positive ANA test, which is, if you get a positive ANA test, you have an autoimmune disease, pretty likely. But I already have one. So we're like, okay, well, this doesn't necessarily mean anything, but let's go see a rheumatologist. So I saw a rheumatologist. And he was a little bit befuddled as well. And finally he was like, hey, do you like to know what your lineage is? What's your heritage? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm German, English, Slovakian, and I'm a mutt just like everybody else, right? And he was like, okay, well, we're going to test you for this thing called familial Mediterranean fever. Generally, people who are Orthodox Jew or who are Mediterranean or Greek have this disease. So that's why he was asking about my lineage. Turns out I have familial Mediterranean fever. I tested positive for it. So I have FMF. And come to find out, really funny, down the line, my aunt did a genetic test and it does turn out there's quite a bit of Greek in my lineage. So that could explain a lot. But basically it's a mutated gene in my body. It's not an autoimmune disease. It's an autoinflammatory disease. So rather than my trained immune system attacking me because it's a gene disorder, it's my immune system I was born with attacks me. So it basically tells my body I'm sick and it needs to attack myself, even though I'm not, which is great. Yeah. So long story short, those are my two things, chronic illnesses.
So here's the thing that I want to bring up first, which I think people who don't deal with this stuff maybe don't understand, which is operating on a baseline of discomfort or feeling crappy that most people be like, oh, I need to stay home with a blankie. And you're like, this is normal. So I guess that's in how did you make, I don't know, peace with that? How did you come to acceptance with that?
Yeah.
And how do you explain that to other people?
Yeah. Well, that's a really
More than one question, I understand. But
they're really good questions. Wow. I don't know that anybody's ever asked me that before, Kristine. Dang, you're a good interviewer. It's a good thing you do freelance
Thank
work
you.
for me.
well, as I said, I deal with my own version of this.
Yes.
So I'm still trying to find answers to these questions. So I'm kind of hoping it be.
Yeah, well, we're gonna return back to that. But for now, to answer your question, so this is also gonna be kind of a long answer. So initially, I was so happy I got a diagnosis because it took a long time to get one, and that was what was most frustrating. I mean, I even had a doctor tell me that she thought I was depressed. I was like, I don't think depression makes me break out in a full rash all over my body. I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
Someone who has depression, I have never had that. Or something.
Oh, just saying. So that was a really frustrating. So there was a lot of relief initially. Part two, though, of that was figuring out my treatment plan. And that was incredibly frustrating because that took a long time. The traditional way to treat it is a pill medication. And you have to play with your dosages, just like you do with, if you have an autoimmune disease, you know that your autoimmune disease is not the same as everybody else's. So you can't treat it the same as everybody else's. The pill was not working for me. I was actually getting more sick. I was having flare-ups once every 10 days, which was, again, debilitating. I mean, I couldn't work. I couldn't take care of my children. It was awful. And so I was switched to a daily injection. So I take a daily injection and that helped me get it under control, but it took a really long time. When it was out of control and I was really sick, I was not well mentally, right? And so I did not have peace with it. I was pretty upset. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that I had done all the things right, quote unquote, in life to take care of my body, and somehow it was still like rebelling, right? And so, and I'm a Christian, so I had a lot of very heated discussions with God. Let's just put it that way. And so that was very tough. And so finally, some things happened. We discovered some more things. We discovered treatment. And now I do really think I'm at peace with it. I really feel like there was a reason why this was brought into my life, and that it was brought into my life as an adult, not a child. So most people with FMF are diagnosed very young. I was not, which is, in my opinion now, a blessing, because I can't even imagine being a child and having to go through what I went. Because as a child, that it would just be the worst. I know what my triggers are. I know how to recognize when a flare-up is coming on. And my doctor and I have really figured out how to treat flare-ups versus just everyday maintenance. I really have come to peace with it. It's you learn to live with it. And there are some days when I do get a flare-up where I'm like, F it all. Like, this is not convenient. But you learn how to live with it over time. You just learn how to. It still sucks, but you learn how to live with it.
Well, I have to ask you because when you were talking, I was thinking, are you familiar with the spoons theory?
No, what's that?
Never heard this.
No.
Okay, this is what someone with chronic illness came up with. At the beginning of the day, everybody gets a certain number of spoons. And for someone who doesn't deal with chronic illness, they have a huge number of spoons, and they can spend 1,000,000 spoons if they want to. But if you have a chronic illness, you have a smaller number, and you have to allocate your spoons so that you can do. So, like a shower take, like doing a load of laundry takes a spoon. Walking, taking a walk with your kids, maybe 2 spoons or whatever. But you have a smaller number than someone who isn't dealing with a chronic illness. So you have to manage your energy and your time and everything more closely and differently because you have less spoons. And I'm wondering, I use that analogy a lot to explain to people what it feels like. So how do you, or do you, explain to people? I mean, I'm assuming people that you see regularly or you work closely with understand that, there's energy issues maybe, or pain issues or whatever it is. And I'm just wondering how you explain it.
Kristine, you're putting me in the hot seat this month. So if I'm being fully transparent, this is probably the first time a lot of people are going to even know who I work with that I deal with this. I have what I like to refer to as oldest daughter syndrome. So I'm the oldest of 5 kids. Yep. You would so you know what I'm talking about. Yep, oldest of 5 kids, and the expectation growing up was that I close my mouth and I help, right? And I had great childhood. My parents did a killer job raising us, but I do tend to like hide things like this because I don't like to be perceived as weak. This is not weak. I get that. And I know that. I still have the perception that it is. And so I don't like talking about it with people, which is why I'm so adamant about managing a flare-up, because my flare-ups tend to happen under very high stress situations, like going to trade shows or increased travel or whatever. And so we've found great treatment plans to where, like, every once in a while it has come up. There was one show I was at in particular where I was fine and we were out for dinner and I was doing great. And then within minutes it had turned and I was like, I am not fine. Things are not fine. And I deteriorated quickly. And my amazing coworker, bless her heart, she didn't even miss a beat. She was just like, yeah, you should just go home. And then later I was just like, hey, sorry, here's the deal. Here's what happened. I'm fine. It's nothing contagious. You're not going to get sick. We're good. And it cleared up very quickly. But so like I'll openly talk about it with people who want to know. Um, because I do think it's important to talk about, and I really want to go into this with you because I feel like you're such an advocate for this kind of thing. Um, so I will openly talk about it with people because I feel like some of our guests have shared this year that talking about it can make it better and can give all of us permission to be okay when we are physically incapable of doing something. Uh, so I'm still working on that part. I'm still working on how to talk to people.
We're brave enough to do this. And if it's something you don't like talking about, it's hard to do that. But I do think also, oldest child myself,
Yes.
caretaker gene is very strong in me. And I did a lot of the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I'm good. I don't need you to take care of me. I can handle everything. And, the thing is, though, I went through a lot of really hard shit because I wouldn't let other people take care of me or ask for help when I needed it. So I think that's something I want to talk about too, because I think there's a line sometimes where you feel like you don't want to impose, you don't want to be a burden, you don't want to be the person who's always like, I've lived around in congestive heart failure. I went to work. I I mean, I literally was like, when we finally figured out what it was, the doctor, my cardiologist was like, you're going to the hospital right now because you're very, very lucky you didn't die. But I was still going to work.
God.
I was still doing everything that I was supposed to be doing, but I was sick. But I wouldn't say to anybody, this is scaring the crap out of me. There's something really, really wrong.
Yeah.
But my doctor kept sending, well, my doctor, who is not my doctor anymore, but kept sending me to all these specialists, finding anything. And the whole time, what I kept saying is, I have to be normal. I can't give into this. I can't let it be. And I'm wondering, and I want to know from you, is that like a chronic illness thing a little bit? Do you think that there's kind of a cultural attitude that you're not supposed to give into it?
Printing United Alliance is the leading member-based printing and graphic arts association in North America with over 70 years of history and more than 20,000 members worldwide. We're here to support printing professionals like you with the tools, resources, and information you need to grow your business, sharpen your skills, and expand your network. Whether you're a printer, supplier, student, or educator, we've built our community to serve everyone who's passionate about the future of print. An Alliance membership is a smart, cost-effective way to stay current on the latest trends, connect with industry leaders, and give your business the competitive edge it deserves. Head over to printing.org/membership to learn more about the memberships we offer. Let's move the printing industry forward together.
Yeah. We think maybe so. Yeah, I think maybe there's a cultural thing.
Culture?
Yeah, I think it's a cultural thing. Um, yeah, afraid to show weakness, afraid to like if I
Yeah.
have to tap out, is somebody gonna take my job? Is someone else gonna step up and do it better than me while I'm out getting better? Um, yeah, I do think there's a huge cultural thing attached to that. And just speaking as a female, I don't want to speak for the guys out there because I'm sure they go through this too. We've talked to Lee Stewart about this. But I think there's also an attachment for women in particular who, it's like we had to claw our way. We had to work so hard to get here. We don't want to lose it now.
And we don't want people to think that we're soft
Yes.
or whiny or complaining or whatever. And it's like, I mean, but it's hard too. If you deal with this stuff every day and you manage it, and in my case, in your case, you took a shot. In my case, I pills. Um, you have stuff you have to manage all the time.
So I'm
That it-
curious, Christine. First of all, I didn't know this about you. So, like, I am like, dang, I already thought this woman was a badass warrior, but now I'm like, jeez, Louise. Having gone through that, like, looking back at like that situation retrospectively, do you think you would have done it differently had you like realized like what would be your advice to like past self to be like, you need to deal with this because there is still going to be the cultural thing. I don't know.
Little backstory to give you some context. I've had health issues my whole life because I was born with a heart defect. I've had 2 surgeries to correct stuff.
Jeez.
I had a lot of skin allergies and other things when I was younger. So my baseline has always been I'm in some sort of discomfort, pain, feeling. That's just kind of how it is. Um, so, and my other big thing was anybody who's ever seen any of my podcasts knows that my parental units were not that. So I was kind of raised be don't make waves, don't complain, don't don't ask for help. And so I don't a
Yeah.
lot of the time.
Yeah.
And and that's if you're not used to being helped, if you're kind of trained to be self-reliant, it's really hard to accept help when it's offered to you and to not feel like, you're taking advantage or you're being bothered or whatever. So we're not supposed to be interviewing me here, by the way. It's supposed to be interviewing you. Anyway,
But also,
but I think it gets all mixed up because there's the fear. I don't want to be a weak woman. I don't want to complain. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be all this stuff. But at the same time, if you're dealing with any kind of mental or physical illness, there are times when you may need a little accommodation or somebody to hold your hand or give you a hug or tell you it's going to be okay. And that shouldn't be abnormal and it shouldn't be something that people hold against you or think less of you for. So, and I don't know how much that is my upbringing that made me scared of that,
sure. Sure.
and how much of it is cultural, but I don't know. I don't know any other kind of way to be.
Yeah.
The way I've always been.
Yeah.
So, and I've dealt with various health issues my entire life. So I'm like, this is how it is.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Sometimes I am not a Christian. I should say that. But I had several conversations with the universe or whatever it is, and what the hell? Come eat. And it's at the end of the day, I think everybody makes peace with it. I think part of the way I've made peace think about it because I feel like that's important.
Yeah.
I think that the more that I think I'll throw a point I want to make because it's something that you said, you don't talk about it a lot. People that look at you or that look at me probably would go, oh, they're healthy, they're great, they have, they have perfect. So I think that's something we need to remember too.
Yeah.
Is that you never know what somebody else is dealing with that they're not maybe sharing with you.
It
So,
sounds so cliche, but it's like that saying of like, you don't know what battle everybody else is fighting, right? So
yeah, that person that you think is, not paying attention, maybe is dealing with a sudden flare up of some kind of autoimmune disease, or, the person who looks like they're really in shape, maybe has COPD, or like me, they have heart issues and sometimes they don't breathe so great, and that's you don't ever know.
Right. It's so true.
Well,
Oh man, and that's like the crazy thing about, and yeah, I was gonna say that's the crazy thing about like chronic illness too, is it's physical, but also like, okay, yes, I deal with the effects of autoimmune disorders and autoinflammatory disorders, but even when you have something like what you were saying with like depression or ADHD or anything like that, like it still can cause chronic issues, right? And have adverse effects on your life that people don't necessarily see. So it's a very interesting conversation.
they don't see it. And I think sometimes you don't necessarily understand. I mean, there are accommodations that mental and physical that I end up making in an average week about because I also think one of the things that maybe people don't get, and I'm guessing this is probably true for you too, is I'm hardest on myself.
Yeah.
So if I can't do something, if I'll feel great and I'm just like mentally or physically, and I just drop the ball in something or just don't feel up to something, I'm much harder on me than probably anybody else would be if I told them, you know? And I'm nodding.
1000%. Because,
Yeah.
well, it probably is. Let's be real. It isn't that big of a deal if something is not perfect, right? Or you have to move a deadline by a couple hours or whatever. But you're right. It's a big deal to us. And I am the same as you. I internalize it like I failed. That's it.
Yep.
Doesn't matter why. I just did. And so,
Well, instead of going, and maybe this is the way we need to look at it, look at all the stuff we're accomplishing
yes.
in spite of these things that we also deal with. Yeah, and I'm really bad at that. I should be superwoman. I should be able to do everything and do it all perfectly and, never let the physical stuff or the mental problems or whatever bother me. But that's not how it works.
One,
And the thing is, we make it worse on ourselves because we don't give ourselves the grace.
that's so true. Well, that's actually kind of what I wanted to. I know. And stop it to say that to ourselves, right? And that's kind of what I wanted to maybe spend the last few minutes talking about. Kristine is like, okay,
Yeah.
yes, we both just admitted we're hardest on ourselves and we should probably be taking our own advice. But I'm curious then what are you, because again, I've always had so much respect for you because you are such an advocate and you give people a safe space to talk about these topics, right? So what is your biggest piece of advice then to people who act like us, who are like, oh, I failed, or oh, I'm going to look weak, or oh, I better not admit I have an issue? Like, what would you say to those people?
I will say this for a really, really long time. I worried terribly about what everybody thought about me. And then again, legacy of how I grew up, um, legacy of perfectionism, oldest child syndrome, all sorts of things. But I really, really had it in my head that I had to be perfect. I had to do all this stuff perfectly. And then COVID happened, and then I quit my job. And then I started doing a stupid little podcast because I didn't like looking at my face on camera. And I thought, I'm going to do it anyway. And literally cringed for like a year. But I discovered that it mattered more what I said than what I looked like when I said it, who I felt when I said it. And that changed everything, really. Because I was like, okay, I am in this body. I am this, but I got something to say, and it seems to resonate with some people. And so it doesn't matter what it doesn't really matter what I feel like, as long as I say it.
Wow.
So how's that?
Well, I love that. Come on, people. If you take anything out of 2025,
You tell people.
what do I tell people? I guess I think back to the podcast we did in May of this year with Amanda Delaney and how we talked about some people are good sharing their stories and some people don't want to share their stories. And that's okay too.
Right.
My advice is you don't have to share your story and all of its specifics. What you do have to be okay with is that people are not going to judge you for having a challenge in your life, for having a thorn. They are not looking at you and being like, well, geez, you're a worse person because you had to take a sick day. We can't be friends. We need to fire you. We're going to replace you. They're not. 9 times out of 10, people are going to give you grace because they either are dealing with something, they have a family member who's dealing with something, or frankly, they're just a human being who has a heart, right? 9 times out of 10, those people are going to give you grace. They're going to say, you know what? That really sucks. You should take a sick day, or you should take an hour, or you are still a high performer, or you're still that. It does not matter. Those things don't. And so just know that at the end of the day, it is okay to have a challenge, and you are not a worse person because of it. You are not a worse performer. You are not all of these boxes people put you in simply because you've been given this challenge in your life.
One final thought.
Yes, please do.
Because I read this memoir recently called Hollywood Park by a gentleman named Michael Olive.
Okay.
I think his name is.
Okay.
I totally recommend it. It's a wonderful memoir. But one of the things he talks about, he's frontman for a band and he writes a lot of songs and everything. And one of the things that he talks about is taking your pain or your trauma or whatever it is and making it useful. And by useful, that could be writing a book, doing a podcast, or it could just be learning to be more compassionate to other people or putting yourself in other people's shoes. But I think thought I'd like to leave everybody with today is we all have pain of some kind or another. Take your pain and make it useful.
Bam. Mic drop. There it is.
I can't take credit for it. He wrote it.
Love it.
But it resonated with me like nothing else I've read.
I really like that. And I am going to take that personally for my own self and use it. Kristine, I'm it just hit me. This is our final episode of 2025. Why did that just now hit me?
I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
I say this when this idea first came up and I thought, and I brought it to you and I thought, well, but she's going to go, gee, that sounds really fun. And then nothing else is ever going to happen with it. And then you said you were going to do it. And I thought, well, great, we're going to do it. I'm not going to get to be a part of it. And I'm so grateful for that. This has been such an inspiring thing to do. This year have been so amazing. We have been so brave and so open and so profound. And, I'm really proud of this little thing that we've made.
I sure am too. Thank you so much for bringing it up and for bringing it to me and for being the co-host and a huge part of this. I'm really excited for next year because, we have some momentum here. This is not the end. We're going. We're going.
People getting the messages out there.
So for everybody listening, if you've got a story to share, please find us.
Yes.
We want to talk to you. Yes, this is the platform to do it. We're here to listen, whatever. Let's share. Let's talk about all the things. Let's keep moving forward. I love it, Kristine.
Definitely. And just also keep in mind that, we talk about the topics that other people get a little nervous about. So, we want to talk about the issues that really need talking about.
That's right. So,
okay.
Look onward and upward, 2026. Here we come with Threads of Change.
Hey everyone, this is Cassie Green, Content Director of Apparelist and Editor at Printing United Alliance.
And this is Kristine Shreve, founder of the Women in Garment Decoration Facebook group.
And you're listening to Threads of Change, a new kind of discussion for the printing industry.
It's time to talk about how we can inspire change. Our conversations will feature topics such as how we can build a more diverse environment at trade shows, what resources are needed to support underrepresented communities, and more.
We might be tackling some tough topics, but we're hoping you'll join us on this journey to be the change we want to see in the industry.